There are many rules to consider when living under a monarch in early modern Europe. Don't publicly criticize the king's authority, stick to whatever flavor of Christianity suits him, and don't make promises to your sovereign that you cannot keep. Johann Friedrich Böttger was in a mountain of trouble. It's possible that he may have implied to the Elector of Saxony that he knew how to transform base metals into gold. It was also very possible that this was a flat-out lie. After fleeing Prussia, Böttger was caught in Saxony and placed under protective custody by Augustus II. If he wanted to survive, then Böttger would need to summon all of his power and creativity to do what no alchemist had done before. But the alchemist's experiments took an unexpected turn, and the result would have a seismic impact on world trade. I'm Nicole Miras, and this is Fireside Fables. When you think of an alchemist, you're probably imagining someone out of Harry Potter, a powerful wizard who lives in the shadows, casting dangerous spells and occasionally exploding things. But before the development of modern science, alchemy was a profession. You could be an alchemist working for a monarch, as John Dee worked for Queen Elizabeth I. The Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II famously employed alchemists, and he himself was deeply fascinated by esoteric topics. Alchemy was an occult practice blended with a proto-science grounded in the beliefs of ancient scholars. Now, I call it proto-science because alchemy served as an important precursor. Alchemists conducted experiments. They compiled their findings, and they often were employed to do state-sponsored research. Isaac Newton, for example, spent decades studying alchemy, and he, like Böttger, wanted to discover a formula to transform metals into gold. Alchemists also laid the groundwork for modern chemistry by developing important laboratory techniques like distillation, sublimation, and a lot of other things that I learned in high school that I can't remember now. But the scientific revolution, in which Newton was, of course, a leading figure, moved away from the occult and no longer deferred blindly to ancient wisdom. Actual science was based on observable reality, and the results of experiments needed to be replicable. Unlike the alchemists, who usually hid the results of their esoteric studies, scientists published their findings so that other scientists could study them and attempt to replicate them. Johann Friedrich Böttger was born in 1682, so he was alive during the scientific revolution, as well as the subsequent Age of Enlightenment, which dominated 18th century intellectual life. However, alchemy hadn't yet faded. And if you're a viewer of this show, then you know that humanity's interest in magic and the occult never truly dies. Which reminds me, if you are interested in the occult, spooky stories, and strange events from history, then I would love to have you join me here every week. Subscribing to Fireside ensures that you'll never miss a future video, and it helps me to find other curious, creative people like you. Okay. Back to Böttger. Böttger was born in Schleiz, which is now in Germany, but at the time was part of the Holy Roman Empire. At the age of 18, Böttger became an apprentice to a pharmacist in Berlin, but as an alchemist, he was really focused on one thing: the Philosopher's Stone. Okay, I know, major Harry Potter vibes. Stick with me. The Philosopher's Stone was a mystical substance believed to turn base metals into gold, and it was believed to be a key ingredient to the elixir of life, which is what Voldemort was after in Book 1. Now, if word got out that you knew how to create the Philosopher's Stone, or that you were close to finding the formula, this would definitely draw the interest of your local leader. In this case, it was Frederick I of Prussia who ordered that Böttger be placed under protective custody, which is not imprisonment, but it does mean that you're being watched and you can't leave the city. But Böttger did escape Berlin, the first of several escapes, actually, though he was captured in Dresden, a city in Saxony. This placed him under the authority of Augustus II, the Elector of Saxony, as well as being the King of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania. He was called Augustus the Strong, the Saxon Hercules, due to his enormous physical strength, but maybe a better nickname for him would have been Augustus the Spendthrift. Augustus was a committed patron of the arts, and during his reign, he worked to transform Dresden into a stunning cultural center. He also had the habit of fathering possibly hundreds of illegitimate children, really giving Elon Musk a run for his money. And like many fashionable leaders of the time, he loved to spend lavishly on Chinese porcelain. In short, he needed money. If this young alchemist could only make good on his promise, then Augustus would have an unlimited supply of gold to fund his porcelain addiction, or what he called his maladie de porcelain. Porcelain was so valuable that it was often referred to as white gold. The earliest experiments with porcelain began during the Shang dynasty in China. Over the centuries, the Chinese refined the process such that by the 600s AD, they could make the fine white porcelain that remains beloved to this day. But it wouldn't be until the Renaissance that greater quantities of porcelain began streaming into Europe, thanks to the development of new trade routes via the Silk Road. European elites scrambled to get their hands on what was, without a doubt, the finest pottery on the market. A fashionable ruler could sip tea in a cup dainty and delicate enough to elevate the daily ritual that was growing increasingly popular throughout the continent. Yet despite this delicate exterior, the porcelain could effectively insulate the tea, which prevented you from burning your hands. Porcelain could also be used to make a variety of decorative pieces, from tableware to figurines to vases. The Chinese adorned their porcelain with motifs of trees and flowers, scenes of warriors, dragons, monks, ladies, and more. This exquisite craftsmanship ignited the imaginations of Europeans, at least those who could afford such far-flung treasures. By the 17th century, the secrets of porcelain production had spread to Japan and Korea, but these artisans were careful to protect their secrets from Western merchants, lest their monopoly collapse. Traders from the West could only use gold or silver to purchase Asian porcelain, and this only fueled Augustus's desire to see his own alchemists produce gold. In 1702, Böttger was only 20 years old. Whether it was youthful bravado or mad scientist levels of crazy, Böttger insisted that he would be the one to solve alchemy's greatest mystery. A year passed. No formula. Another year passed. Augustus was growing impatient. In 1704, after Böttger botched his latest escape plan to Vienna, Augustus decided to place the young alchemist under the watchful eye of Ehrenfried Walter von Tschirnhaus, the electoral mathematician and physicist. Von Tschirnhaus saw Böttger's potential, and he swiftly enlisted him in helping with his experiments. He revealed to Böttger that he was conducting a series of experiments to test how different Saxon clays responded when fired at different temperatures. After all, who needed gold if they could make the porcelain themselves? Böttger was not interested. His true mission was to find the formula for gold, and if his middle-aged mentor wanted to play with clay, then that was his business. But then another year passed. And another. Perhaps it was out of desperation, or maybe he finally matured a little bit. But at 25, Böttger began earnestly collaborating with von Tschirnhaus. In different kingdoms and principalities, other alchemists had been banished or even executed for the kinds of claims that Böttger made in his early 20s. If von Tschirnhaus's experiments succeeded, then Böttger just might save his own neck. By the autumn of 1707, Böttger and von Tschirnhaus knew that a clay mixture fired at extremely high temperatures could produce the hardness needed for porcelain. They even succeeded in making red clay versions, as the Chinese artisans had done centuries before. But how to achieve that perfect white color? This is where our story gets murky. The key to making porcelain is kaolin, a white clay made of kaolinite that lends porcelain its color. Accounts differ regarding who solved the mystery. Was it Böttger or von Tschirnhaus? Did they discover the answer together? Shortly after this victory, von Tschirnhaus died of dysentery on October 11th, 1708. It may not surprise you that Böttger claimed to be the person who found the formula for porcelain. Sleazy or not, doing so saved his life. By March of the following year, Augustus was placing Böttger in charge of a porcelain factory in Meissen, and Meissen still produces porcelain to this day. It's debated whether or not Böttger was the first European to discover the formula for hard-paste porcelain. English chemists were independently working on a similar project at the time, but Böttger was certainly the first to bring the product to market. In doing so, he disrupted a centuries-old monopoly, launched a new era of porcelain design with Western artistic motifs, and quite possibly saved Saxony's finances. But he also traversed the gap between science and alchemy by conducting experiments with replicable results based in observable reality. And while he didn't find the formula to make gold, he could settle on white gold instead. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments if you have an idea for a future video. Be well, and I'll see you next time.